The last time you picked butter off a supermarket shelf, there is a reasonable chance that what you placed in your trolley was not butter. Not in the legal sense, not in the nutritional sense, and certainly not in the sense the packaging was quietly suggesting. This is happening right now in every major UK supermarket, and the people it affects most are the ones watching their spending most carefully. In this video, I am going to take you through 7 specific products currently sitting in the butter sections of Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, Morrisons and Waitrose. Products that millions of British households are buying every single week. I will show you what is actually inside them, how their labeling and positioning creates deliberate confusion, which ones have quietly reformulated without any announcement, and which ones are trading on a British dairy image while the ingredients tell a very different story. By the end, you will know exactly what to look for on a butter label, which products are actually worth your money, and how to make a sharper decision the next time you are standing in that aisle. If you leave before the end, you will miss the brand that uses the word butter in its name but contains no dairy whatsoever. Stay with me. Under UK food law, a product can only be sold as butter if it contains a minimum of 80% milk fat, no more than 16% water, and no more than 2% milk solids. That is the legal threshold. It has not changed. The issue is what happens when manufacturers want to create a product that spreads straight from the fridge, which is genuinely what many shoppers want, without having to call it something less commercially appealing than butter. The industry's solution was to blend dairy butter with vegetable oils, most commonly rapeseed oil or palm oil. Doing this drops the milk fat content below the 80% legal threshold, which means the product can no longer be sold as butter. It becomes a fat spread, a dairy blend, or a blended spread. Now here is where the confusion is created deliberately. The packaging of many of these products uses color schemes, font styles, cow imagery, and countryside photography that is visually almost identical to genuine butter packaging. The word butter appears prominently, sometimes in the product name itself, sometimes in phrases like made with butter or contains real butter. The product sits in the butter section. The price is comparable to butter. Most shoppers moving through a busy supermarket never clock the difference. That is not an accident. It is a design decision. Between 2022 and 2025, UK dairy prices surged sharply, driven by rising feed costs, energy prices, and global supply disruption. Real butter became more expensive to produce and more expensive to sell. Several brands responded not by raising prices transparently, but by changing what was inside the pack while keeping the exterior almost identical. In some cases, this meant increasing the water content, legal up to the permitted maximum, to stretch the same amount of milk fat further. In others, it meant quietly adjusting the ratio of vegetable oil to dairy fat in an existing blend, reducing the premium dairy content without reducing the premium price. Simultaneously, pack sizes began to shift. The standard 250-gram block that British households had bought for years was replaced in some ranges with a 200-gram version at the same or a higher price. Some brands moved from 500 grams to 400 grams. These changes were rarely publicized and were almost never accompanied by any reformulation notice on the front of the pack. Britain has a genuinely world-class dairy farming sector. British consumers are also more likely to pay a premium for products they believe are British. The marketing industry knows this very well. Several of the brands we are going to examine use packaging that features British rural imagery, rolling green hills, Union Jack iconography, or language that evokes British farming heritage, while the dairy itself is sourced from Ireland, Denmark, New Zealand, or other European countries. This is not illegal. A product can be manufactured in the UK using imported cream without making a false claim in any technical sense. But the cumulative impression created by the packaging, particularly when combined with a higher price, is that you are buying something rooted in British farming when, in many cases, you are not. While large brands manage their margins and reformulate their products to absorb the pressure of rising costs, there is a group of people in Britain who cannot do any of that. Britain's independent dairy farmers and small regional creameries have been under sustained financial pressure for years. Unlike the large brands, they cannot swap out ingredients. They cannot redesign a label to imply a provenance they do not have. They make real butter from British milk at a genuine cost, and they have to compete on a supermarket shelf against products positioned to look almost identical but that cost significantly less to produce. Some of Britain's oldest small creameries have already closed. Others are surviving on the thinnest of margins. When a shopper picks up a vegetable oil blend that looks like premium British butter and is priced close enough to match it, that is a sale that did not go to a real farmer or a real independent producer somewhere in this country. This matters beyond sentiment. Britain's dairy farming landscape is part of its food security. The fewer independent producers there are, the more concentrated the market becomes, and the more leverage the large commercial players have to dictate prices, lower standards, and ultimately determine what ends up on your shelf. The first thing the industry is not telling you is that the butter aisle is not regulated as a category in the way most shoppers assume. Supermarkets are under no legal obligation to separate real butter from butter blend spreads. They can, and consistently do, display them side by side, often with the blend products placed at eye level where premium sales are made. The second thing is that spreadable is a deliberate category label engineered to sidestep the connotations of margarine, a word historically associated with cheap synthetic fat. Margarine-style products have been rebranded as spreadable butters and butter blends, and the language shift has been so successful that most shoppers no longer make the distinction at the shelf. The third thing is palm oil. Several of the products in this video contain palm oil as part of their vegetable oil blend, used to achieve a specific texture and mouthfeel. Palm oil carries significant documented concerns around tropical deforestation and biodiversity loss. Its presence in products with premium, natural, or pastoral imagery is something most brands prefer not to draw attention to. The fourth thing is nutritional transparency. Real butter contains naturally occurring dairy fatty acids, fat-soluble vitamins, and conjugated linoleic acid, a fatty acid associated with dairy nutrition. Vegetable oil blends carry a different and often more processed fat profile, frequently with added emulsifiers. When a shopper buys a blend believing they are buying butter, they are not just being misled about sourcing, they are also receiving a nutritionally different product. Now let us get specific. Here are 7 products currently on UK supermarket shelves that deserve a much closer look before you put them in your trolley. Number 1. Anchor Spreadable. Anchor's spreadable range is one of the most widely purchased products in the UK butter category. But it is not butter. It is a blend of butter and rapeseed oil, with some formulations also incorporating palm oil. The dairy is sourced from New Zealand, not Britain. The packaging presents a fresh, natural aesthetic that leans heavily into dairy imagery, and for most shoppers, the association with real butter is immediate and automatic. It is a fat spread. Check the label. The milk fat content sits well below the legal butter threshold. Number 2. Clover. Clover has been on British shelves since 1983 and has done an extraordinarily effective job of positioning itself within the butter section rather than the spreads section in shoppers' minds. The branding is warm, the dairy imagery is consistent, and the name itself implies a connection to pasture-based farming. But Clover is a blend of dairy and vegetable fats. It is not butter under UK law. It cannot legally be labelled as such, and yet it sits in the butter aisle and is routinely purchased by consumers who believe they are buying a dairy product comparable to butter. Number 3. Flora Plant Beta. This is the one that surprises people most. Flora Plant Beta. Note the deliberate stylization that replaces the letter U with a plus sign, contains no dairy whatsoever. It is an entirely plant-based spread. There is nothing inherently wrong with plant-based products. But when a product uses a stylized version of the word butter in its name, sits physically in or adjacent to the butter section, and is priced in line with mid-range dairy butter, the scope for confusion among shoppers moving quickly through a busy store is very real. Number 4. I can't believe it's not butter. The name is intended to be playful. The reality is that this product is a palm oil and vegetable oil spread that contains a minor percentage of buttermilk. The fat profile is that of a processed vegetable blend. Palm oil is a primary ingredient. The name quite literally tells you it is not butter. It is simply done so as a punchline rather than as a product declaration, which means the message rarely lands as useful consumer information. Number 5. Lurpak Spreadable. Lurpak produces genuinely good block butter. The spreadable version is a different product entirely. It contains rapeseed oil blended with Danish dairy butter, which drops it below the legal butter threshold. The Danish dairy origin is also worth noting for shoppers actively trying to support British farming. What makes the spreadable range particularly worth scrutinizing in 2026 is the price. Lurpak Spreadable has become one of the most expensive mainstream products in the category, and paying that premium for a blend rather than pure butter represents a notable gap between what the price signals and what the product delivers. Number 6. Country Life Spreadable. Country Life has built its brand almost entirely on British imagery, the Union Jack packaging, the Great British Butter positioning, the strong provenance messaging. The block butter version is made from British milk. The spreadable version is a dairy and oil blend, meaning it falls outside the legal definition of butter. The risk here is that the powerful British brand identity transfers seamlessly across the entire product range, and shoppers paying the Country Life premium for the spreadable tub may not realize they are buying something fundamentally different from the block on the shelf beside it. Number 7. Bertolli with butter. Bertolli is primarily an olive oil brand, and its with butter spread attempts to combine olive oil with dairy butter to create a product that trades simultaneously on the health associations of olive oil and the indulgence associations of butter. The actual butter content is relatively modest, the olive oil proportion is moderate, and the overall result is a fat spread that tells two premium ingredient stories while delivering a diluted version of both. The pricing, however, reflects the premium positioning in full. Here is what you can take away and apply at your next shop. First, look for the words fat spread, dairy blend, or blended spread anywhere on the packaging of what you are considering. These words confirm the product is not legally butter. If those words are absent from the front, check the ingredients list. If vegetable oil or rapeseed oil appears alongside or before butter fat, you are looking at a blend. Second, check the milk fat percentage on the nutritional panel. Genuine butter will show milk fat at or above 80%. If the total fat is split between saturated and unsaturated in a ratio that looks more balanced than you would expect from pure dairy, you are holding a blended product regardless of the branding. Third, interrogate origin claims. Made in the UK does not mean made from British milk. If genuine British dairy provenance matters to you, for supporting British farmers, for food security reasons, or simply because you want to know what you are paying for, look for products that explicitly state British milk or carry the Red Tractor Dairy Assurance mark. Fourth, default to block over spreadable. In almost every brand range, the block version is more likely to be genuine butter than the spreadable tub. If convenience is the issue, leaving a block at room temperature for 20 to 30 minutes before a meal gives you spreadable butter without the oil blend. It costs nothing extra. Fifth, calculate the unit price rather than the pack price. A 250-gram block of genuine British butter from a smaller or regional producer may appear more expensive than a larger tub of a branded blend, but when you calculate the price per gram and factor in what you are actually receiving, the smaller producer's product often represents the stronger value for real butter. 3 things to carry into your next supermarket shop as a direct result of this video. 1. If it says spreadable on the front, it is almost certainly a blend and not butter. Read the ingredients before you buy. 2. British imagery on a butter pack does not mean British dairy. Look for an explicit British milk statement or the red tractor mark before you pay a British provenance premium. 3. The block is almost always where the real product lives. If you want genuine butter, start there. UK checkout truth exists because the information you need to make better decisions at the checkout is rarely on the front of the pack. It lives in the ingredients list, in the regulatory category the product has been filed under, and in the space between how something is presented and what it actually is. The butter aisle is one of the most visually misleading sections in any British supermarket. Now you know exactly why, and you know precisely what to look for. Have you ever picked up one of these products thinking it was something it wasn't? Tell us in the comments below. We want to hear from shoppers across the UK who have felt that gap between the packaging promise and what was actually inside. And if this video sharpened how you read a supermarket shelf, our investigation into whether supermarket own label products genuinely match the branded versions sitting beside them is linked on screen right now. That one might surprise you even more.